Got a story here from one of my friends, actually, over at Forbes, Gordon Kelly.
Oh.
You didn't know I have friends over there.
Yeah, I did. You told me.
Yeah, that's right. So well, to be honest, he covers similar stuff. He's always talking about Apple, upcoming products, and leaks and rumors also seems to be an area of interest for him. He's got a new article here. Apple's radical new iPhone suddenly takes shape. Now you see how they come with the headline. Apple's radical new iPhone suddenly takes shape. You see how they do that, Will?
They rope you in.
I've been roped.
Yeah.
And now I'm in. So basically, there's some renders that have emerged already about the potential next iPhone, in which some of the rumors that existed for the current iPhone finally come to fruition in this next render, the next version. The thing that people seem to want, the thing that continues to come up is this return to form with the block style design.
Industrial.
Yeah, the kind of boxy edge, similar to what was there on the iPhone 5, 4, and so on. SE. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people were a fan of that particular style. And it gave you nice confidence in the hand. That's what reviewers say, Will.
Yes, they do.
They say, feels good in the hand. Like smartphone technology reviewers say that. iPhone 4 feels good in the hand. Which is obviously is kind of funny because where else would you feel it?
Yeah.
Other than in the hand.
Yeah. I guess compared to other phones.
No. Feels good in the hand.
Yes.
So, anyway, this new one probably, if it looks like this, it might feel good in the hand as well. Mm-hmm. And the thing that strikes you immediately when you look at this render, by the way, the render from phonearena.com, reposted by Gordon Kelly on Forbes. 4 cameras on the back. Look at that thing. That's a camera monster. Otherwise, very square-ish. On the back side, looking a lot like the current version. Then on the front side, you notice a notch that has shrunk a little bit. The edges of it changed ever so slightly as well, but still there. Still in place, as it probably will be for the foreseeable future, because it seems that this under-display technology that could potentially have a similar functionality to the advanced face unlock that Face ID uses, that just hasn't emerged yet. So we're probably going to live with the notch a little longer. You know, I've been using the Pixel 4 XL. It's just they didn't even try with the notch. They were like, we got all this tech up there, put the giant forehead. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to getting these more advanced face unlocks, we just live with the reality that we're not going to have this bezel-less idea. Now, apparently, this some other leaked information seems to point to the fact that there will be a return of Touch ID as well for this next generation of iPhone, possibly in display, presumably in display, though Apple has been reluctant to do this up until this point, even though we've seen it on so many other brands of smartphones, though not without issue. Mm-hmm. As we talked about here on the show, Samsung, they had their very own issues.
Yeah, ultrasonic display.
With the in-display.
Yeah.
But we saw it on a OnePlus device. We've seen it on many devices at this point. So I think it would make sense for Apple to at least take a look at it. The other big thing, next generation, possibly 5G, big 5G talk, and ProMotion, because that's all the rage right now, Will. 90 hertz phones. Heard about them? Mm-hmm. Quick, snappy.
Yeah.
Gives you a nice feeling. So promotion could happen for the iPhone. It does already exist on the iPad Pro. So that would make a lot of sense. These are all big marketing headlines that you could go out and sell another phone with. And then the last one, which to me is a long time coming and will be a very welcome addition, is USB Type-C.
Oh,
So let's throw that in there.
yeah.
Because
that's
we just got a wish list right now.
Yeah.
Gordon Kelly got a wish list. Phone Arena got a wish list. I got a wish list. And you only care about if it feels good in the hand.
Well, yeah. Like my favorite phone was the iPhone 4.
Why
when
is
it
that?
Came out.
Why is that?
The look, the industrial look.
Any other reason?
Bengate
That wasn't that wasn't that iPhone.
or Antenna Gate.
Antenna Gate, iPhone
Yeah.
4. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
No,
I
no,
meant is there any other reason?
I can't think of any. No.
So you don't want to talk about how it felt then?
Well, yeah. I mean, it looked great. I mean, it
No,
felt
I'm
good.
more curious about how
know.
it felt and where you felt it.
I mean, we don't have to talk about that.
Did it feel good in the hand, Will?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It looked great. It felt great in the hand.
In the hand. So stupid. What are we doing? Anyway, yeah. So these renders are at least cool to look at. You can imagine a return to this industrial form. I think it would be a welcome thing for a lot of people. Certainly, those other specifications that I mentioned, I think a lot of people would want. Who doesn't want the ProMotion? Who doesn't want the Type-C? I don't even think anybody's trying to defend the Lightning connector at this point.
No.
So let's just move along. Let's get this going. Plus, like I said, the ProMotion and the Type-C, it's already on the iPad.
Mm-hmm.
And the iPad has the blocky edge, the rectangular industrial aspect. So they're not really actually cohesive at the moment,
No.
the two products. And in a weird way, the iPad almost feels more futuristic than the iPhone, which is strange because the iPad sat at that one kind of look for a really long time up until these recent Pros. But anyhow, it could add the fourth camera as well, though I'm not so certain on that one. I can't imagine that degree of overhaul within a singular generation. So it's probably a triple camera setup still. But anyhow, you can look at the render and get some positive feelings. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. Look at some renders. Have a nice day.
It does look nice though. With
See?
the symmetry.
There you go. Symmetry.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, speaking of iPad's doing all right. iPad market share grows by 4% in the third quarter. Stronger mix of iPad Pro sales. So people like the iPad Pro, Will. Well, some people do. And 4% is not massive for a company like Apple, but, it's hard in the tablet game. And this market share improvement is indicative of how hard it is in the tablet game for the other players. You don't see other tablets out in the world. You don't see that. I mean, if you exclude the Surface products, as you would, because they're running essentially a laptop or desktop OS. So now we're talking about Galaxy tablets, and we're talking about what else are we talking? What else are you going to see in public? I mean, Huawei just put out one that looked like an iPad, sort of. What else are you going to see out in public? From who? Someone's screaming right now in the comments. Like, I love my Media Pad 3000.
Yeah.
From
Linux.
From Hitachi. You don't remember Hitachi? I got a Hitachi TV when I was a kid, and then later I got a Toshiba. But the Hitachi was interesting because my family and I, we were in the States. This used to be a thing that people would do. They would drive down to Buffalo to catch a deal.
The malls.
People from Toronto would do this.
Oh, yeah.
Drive down to Buffalo, catch a deal. It's the first time actually I went to a Best Buy store before it came to Canada. And so we're in this store. I'm with my dad. He was kind of into gadgets as well. And we're looking at these big tube TVs at the time. And they're saying, this Hitachi, is that a good brand name? Am I going to drive this thing over the border? I got no recourse. It's got to be a good brand name. That's what people used to say. Well,
Really?
yeah, people used to talk like that because Sony owned it. It was, you bought a Sony Trinitron, you knew you were golden. So everything else below there, you were kind of a little skeptical if you're getting swindled. But that TV we came back with, these CRT TVs.
How many inches do you remember? Was it like your main TV?
You know, it was a weird measurement. It was like a 31 or something.
31.
It was like a 31. And that was a
half.
tank. That thing was 800 pounds.
Yeah.
All the glass in there. But I threw up the Dreamcast, like from the last episode. I put that on there. I put maybe some PlayStation on there. I don't know what it was. You had the curvature to the glass. No input lag.
Yes.
They say for Street Fighter and stuff, you still want to play it on there, apparently.
These tube-style TVs resemble a very certain point in time.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes. You had
video
one of these. Do you
games.
remember what the brand of yours was?
Man, it's been so long.
That's rough.
Yeah, I don't remember. It has to be Japanese. Probably Sony.
You probably
something
had
like
you
that.
probably had the Sanyo. you remember Sanyo? Yeah. So that was one as well.
They developed a lot of.
Do you know something? The family TV was the 32-inch. The one that we had access to for a while was a 13-inch TV. You know, the little box. You had to sit a few inches from it. Play that Ninja Turtles in Time. Is that what it was?
Oh yeah.
Turtles in Time.
Yeah, we had a Panasonic. Yeah.
Panasonic, not bad. That's
Not
pretty
bad.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week, Strategy Analytics released its latest tablet industry report detailing market share across global manufacturers. Market share grew by 4% in Q3 2019 compared to the same period last year. That is 10.1 million shipments. Overall tablet sales fell by 4%, with only Apple, Amazon, and Lenovo showing increased sales. This is all coming via 9 to 5 Mac. Of course, Apple increased its iPad offering by putting out the 10.2-inch screen iPad Pro, kind of old, new budget model, which a lot of people said that's a go-to one, right? The 10.2. Is that what people were saying? I don't recall. I have, of course, used the Pro versions, both 11 and the 12.9. Those are the expensive models. To me, those are still the ones to go for. They're just futuristic. They're really light and impossibly thin, and it's just the whole package together is really nice. I don't get a ton of use out of them. I think for most people spending that kind of dough, you're going to have to get more use out of it than I do. I do not use it as a laptop replacement. That said, as mentioned in the previous article, that ProMotion display in a big format is kind of nice to interact with. It's super snappy, just like the higher hertz displays on smartphones are. It just makes it feel faster. So Apple's units rose about 4%. Total revenue in the segment grew 8%, which means that Apple's seeing a higher mix of the more expensive iPad Pros in those figures compared to the cheaper iPad models, which presumably hasn't always been the case. I remember a point in time where iPad minis were just flying out the door. Remember minis, iPad minis? Everybody had one.
Yeah.
Every kid in the world had iPad mini, just drilling their brains full of stuff.
Pure media consumption.
Just, just glued to it. But I have a story about that. I have a really interesting finding about that coming up.
A personal
later on.
story.
It's not personal. I mean,
okay.
Well, I mean, it could be.
Okay.
There's a personal element to it, but it's actually a new study. It's coming up soon on the show because we're on a show now. I don't know if people notice we're on a show.
I didn't know.
When Kurt cuts to that angle, then it's a show. You understand? That angle right there, Will, that's a show.
Hello.
That's right. You see?
That's a thing.
It's a professional show. You know who you have to thank for that, Will?
Kirk.
Oh. All right. That's nice.
You got all the setup going. So
The iPad continues to dominate the tablet market with that 10.1 million number. The next biggest manufacturer of tablets, believe it or not, Amazon, with half that at 5.3 million. Now, apparently that was fueled by their heavy Prime Day discounts. We'll see. Maybe they can improve that Black Friday sales and so forth. But it's a tough comparison because, Amazon, you go to the website and they're throwing those tablets at you.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're on a website, they're physically throwing tablets at you. And then it's got the ads on it.
Yeah.
It's $8. Fire.
Kindle HD.
No, Kindle doesn't count.
Fire tablet.
Or do they put Kindle in there? No, Fire tablet. Kindle Fire.
Yeah, something to do with fire.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if those Amazon tablets have gotten any better. Maybe I should ask the audience, somebody who's picked one up recently. Back when I first got my hands on them, it kind of put me off of the Amazon tablets. Not talking about the e-readers, not talking about the Kindle.
No. Yeah, I was just joking.
The Fire HD specifically. What is it now? Fire HD 10. Maybe the time is now. And look, if you're on a budget or you buy it for a kid or something, I can see it. So anyhow, it makes up 5 million shipments next to Apple's 10. The entire tablet market, which is declining, as I mentioned earlier, around 38 million units. People just not using the tablets like they were. Remember that first iPad, man? It was hot for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last Apple story of the day. Analytics firm says Apple TV Plus premier interest pales compared to Netflix. There's a company out there, and they go by the name of Parrot. And this company aims to determine the popularity of a TV series based on a wide array of inputs that happen on the web. General interest measurement, social media analysis, what are people talking about? And then it uses that data against other similar data they see for other shows to try to figure out how popular something is that isn't on traditional TV, like kind of like a Nielsen for web-based stuff. And so they compared some of those new Apple TV Plus shows, such as The Morning Show, For All Mankind, a couple of others, and they compared those against Hulu shows, Netflix shows. What else they have in there? DC, Amazon Prime, DC Universe. There's a couple in this list. This list includes some of the best performers, which this was actually surprising to me. The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance on Netflix. Hot show.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of promo for that.
Okay.
It looks fun.
Hot show.
It's like puppets and
hey, I'm into it. I'll give it a glance. I probably won't, but growing up, I was a big Dark Crystal guy. It was one of the few VHS tapes I had.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I got to peek into it. I'm not really sure. But the surprising part, or at least based on this article here, the expectation was much higher for the Apple TV Plus launch titles because of the marketing that went into them. Billboards and commercials and everything else. And the worst performance, this is maybe the most surprising part, The Morning Show with the most star power of the bunch. The Morning Show with the lowest score of the bunch as far as interest is concerned. A couple of others beat it. Now, granted, Will, they're new players, right? Netflix, established. People are talking. People have subscriptions, and people are, as we know, they might be experiencing some subscription fatigue. It's just another service. And on top of that, Apple is giving people a free trial on products sold since September. Is that correct? September 10th, I think. Early September. People are going to begin to start these free trials. And then maybe these numbers go up as people continue to buy their new Apple devices with the subscriptions bundled in. But as for right now, I guess it's not looking so great. It's hard.
Are you going to subscribe?
I probably have a free trial. All the iPhones floating around and whatever other products.
Yeah. Are you gonna watch?
No, but I can't
the
watch
morning
these
show?
things. I can't watch these things.
Why not?
Well, I thought we talked
Just,
about this before. What am I doing? I'm
help
sitting
them-
at home. I'm sitting at home. I'm watching the morning show.
Yeah, Steve Carell
Guy like me.
is making funny.
Guy like me. I'm sitting at home.
Why not? Give it a shot. You might like it.
That's what I got you for, Will. You got to go watch these things.
I mean, yeah, sure. I'll
Okay, let us know about the morning show.
I'll
A
binge
lot of
watch.
star power. Jennifer Aniston.
There's another one.
I don't know what Apple's doing. Content is hard. How do you go from being a tech company, content company, you start hiring people, you buy a couple of cameras, and then what? You still got to figure it out like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't that easy to generate this interesting stuff. And like I said, Will, I think we're really at this point right now where it's just this convergence. There's so many potential subscriptions you can have. Are people going to pick Apple out of the bunch in the face of Netflix and Disney Plus and whatever else, Hulu? I don't know. It's a tough gig. It's a tough sale. But nonetheless, they're trying, and they're trying to diversify their portfolio. Because as we mentioned in a previous episode, you can't just lean on iPhones forever. Everybody got phones now. You can't keep banking that grand forever every single year.
Yeah.
So now you got a nickel and dime. You got to take $5 every month.
Yeah.
So you got...
distribute your portfolio.
There you go. I think you mean diversify.
Yes. Is it? Yeah, it is. No,
Willie
you're right.
Willie do, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, if you need to know about business,
Apparently not. Don't go to me.
diversify your portfolio. Yeah. Message of the day. Hey, Will, did you... actually, I'll get to that one next. Here's one. Huawei Nova 6 5G dazzles with a new brand logo. This comes via gizchina.com. And I have an interesting thought here. Or maybe it is interesting. Maybe it's not. People get to decide. That's the point. Huawei puts out this new phone, or at least shows it off here, or there's renders of it. I don't know if they leaked or how they got out. But the interesting part is that they got this new logo on there, this Nova branding. Now, it's not that it doesn't have a Huawei logo. It does, but it's small. It's up by the camera unit. And if you scroll down to the next render, you'll see it's a tiny little Huawei logo. But the main logo, where you would normally put a logo on a smartphone, instead is this geometric looking font thing for the sub brand, I suppose, or not even the sub. Yeah, the series name Nova, putting more emphasis on the Nova aspect than the Huawei aspect. Now, granted, this is a 5G smartphone. The specs are kind of what you'd expect: triple vertical cameras. You have the Kirin 990 5G chip. That's with the 5G modem in the SoC for the first time, by the way. It's going to be quick, but that's not the interesting part to me. The interesting part to me, oh, by the way, it also has a dual hole punch front side, which up until this point, I think the only time I've seen that exact implementation is on the Galaxy S10 Plus. But the interesting part, the standout, the reason I selected this particular article is because of that decision. Obviously, someone made the design decision to emphasize the Nova aspect and to kind of minimize the Huawei aspect. And so you start to speculate about what the motivation for doing so might be. It could just be a rogue designer. It's like, Nova sounds cool. We're going Nova. But you could also interpret this as Huawei kind of taking a step back from a brand that is currently being targeted, right? That's currently in the news, not always in the most positive light. So we've seen this happen in the past, sub-brands of brands.
Yeah.
A way
Spin-off.
to kind of subvert your attention. You just look at the phone for what it is and you stop thinking about the brand name, and maybe we'll see more of this. This is something we were talking about when the ban first came into play. As much money as Huawei has been spending on marketing over the past couple of years, at least here in Canada, tons of marketing. It would suck to have to give that up and shift your attention to marketing a sub brand, but they do have other brands. There's Honor that exists, and they could conceivably they could create as many sub brands as they want, and then say, come and buy a Willie Do phone if they wanted to have a hit on their hands.
Yes.
Do phone.
They want to make a lot.
It would
of
just
money.
be Do phone.
Yeah.
It would be, are you a doer?
Or
I'm doing an ad campaign right now. Are you a doer? You need the Do phone.
gotta do it.
Built for doers.
Yes.
Just do it. Just do it, but DU for Willie Do, and then they're not infringing on
Nike's brand.
Nike's Just Do It, which, by the way, what a slow. Just do it.
I know, right?
Oh, my God. Have we talked about this before? Just do it. Hey, I got an idea. Just do it. I do remember
Shia LaBeouf.
listening. No, definitely not Shia LaBeouf. I do recall listening to the origin of it, but I can't recall right now. I listened to an entire podcast about it. No, no. That's an urban legend. Yeah, that's an urban legend. I don't know. It feels like an urban legend to me. All right, we'll look into it. Well, the people are already looking into it, and Will is he's obviously very focused on LaBeouf. LaBeouf? Man, that video was so viral. Remember that?
Yeah.
And he's just yelling, just do it.
Green screen.
Just do it.
It's a lot of memes.
That's crazy, man. I somehow had forgot this meme, but it was huge at the time. Massive. Hey, Will, have you heard of WeWork?
Yes.
Do you know much about what's been going down with that company?
They made a ton of money. And,
raised a ton of money. They never made a ton of money.
Well, they do have a lot of money.
Well, that's
Like,
the
bank.
issue. They tried to file an IPO, and it turns out they didn't have as much money as people thought they had.
Okay, yeah.
They had actually been kind of bleeding money, or I don't know what you say in the startup world, startup culture, but they were taking. They were behaving very liberally with a lot of the funds that they had received via investment, and then there was an issue with the CEO. They tried to oust him, but he was all tangled up. He had a lot of personal conflicts of interest in there, where he would lease a space, let's say, on a personal name, and then use and then have WeWork, the company, on a sublease where he would up the cost. And I don't know, allegedly.
Yes.
Allegedly. Key terminology there. Well, there's one of their biggest investors. I don't know, it might have been probably their biggest investor. This Vision Fund, which was started by SoftBank, who of course is this major telco in Japan, huge company. They lost $8.9 billion on their fund, Vision Fund, mostly because of WeWork. So in terms of evaporating value, 8.9 billion.
So that money is just gone.
Evaporate. Well, maybe it was never there.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. But I mean, it was there. They definitely, it was there.
In the books.
They've invested. They've been some of the most aggressive investors. I listened to a good podcast about it. Maybe it was Planet Money. Can't remember right now. But they've been super aggressive investors with this enormous fund. I believe it's like $100 billion fund or some crazy number. $100 billion Vision Fund. And they would go out and just bully everybody out of the game. They would go invest in a particular company, in a particular segment, whatever it happened to be. Could be, I think the example they used was dog walkers or something. They found a funny one in the podcast I was listening to, but they would go into a segment. WeWork, for example, not the only company in the shared office space. But they would fund companies so hard that they could have this rapid expansion. Everybody would be like, we're out. It's like a poker match. You push all the chips in the table.
Like they're a monopoly.
You got the bigger stack, Will.
Yeah.
You get the bigger stack, you keep pushing. Everybody's like, this guy can't even play at this table anymore. I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to go get a degree.
Yeah.
Forget this startup life. He's got to keep pushing the chips. Anyway, they invested in Uber, WeWork, ton of other companies. It's crazy. If you go look up the Vision Fund, you'll see they invested in everything. Overall, the group posted an operating loss of $6.5 billion compared to a similar amount in profit for the same period a year earlier. So they had no problems a year earlier, same period. They're just making $6 billion in profit. All of a sudden, WeWork fiasco, night, say goodbye. So this guy, who has the coolest name ever, by the way, the guy who runs the fund, listen to this name. Well, you wish you had this name, even though you got a great name. Masayoshi Son. Yeah! Masayoshi Son. CEO.
Very jealous.
Masayoshi Son. You see that? Just let it live. Let it breathe for a minute. Some of us get gifted something like that. And then you go out and you start investing billions of dollars just because of the name alone. He did nothing else. He just saw the name and
It's like, yep.
they gave him $100 billion. They said, figure out how to invest it. I don't know. Name like that. Obviously, that's not what happened. He's been critical now of this CEO, Adam Neumann, Newman maybe. That's the guy. That's the WeWork CEO that's under. He's getting a lot of scrutiny now. He's under duress, and he's out of the company as far as I know. So anyhow, it's been a bit of a disaster. Here's a quote from Masayoshi Son. My investment judgment was poor in many ways, and I am reflecting deeply on that. And many are saying that's a remarkable admission for an executive of that stature to even say that. You know in Japan how it goes. You can't just say dishonorable.
Yeah, honors everything.
Yeah, you can't just be coming out and saying I made a mistake. Poor judgment. Anyhow, he says it's going to come back. He still believes in WeWork now that dude is gone. He thinks they can make a company. He thinks there's a real business there, even though many people are obviously very skeptical. I thought it was interesting. Very cool podcast I listened. I hope it was Planet Money because I might be shouting out the wrong thing here, but you can go check out a very interesting story about how you had all this money flowing, but the business model wasn't fleshed out yet, and you have a lot of potential for problems when that's the case. Here's an interesting one from CNBC. Never spend more than this much of your income on a car. Now, before I get into it, what percentage of your yearly income do you think you should spend on a car's purchase price? Well, according to this millionaire finance expert, of course, you could disagree with him, but what do you think he says?
Well, I know for rent, it's generally about a quarter of your annual income.
Okay.
For a car, I don't know, maybe 10%.
Oh, man, Willie Doo nailed it.
Is it 10?
Willie Doo nailed it. It's 10%. I thought that was incredible. I thought that was aggressive.
Well, I'm getting a Taycan. No, I'm just joking.
Whoa.
Expensive, right?
What?
I mean, like, of your annual income. Like, if, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, yeah.
What are you saying, Will?
Would be pretty fair, I would say.
You like 10%. You're sticking to 10%.
Yeah.
Well, he agrees with you. So I don't know. Maybe you should be a financial expert. What are you doing here?
Maybe.
Or maybe you can let the people know we can have a financial update with Willie Doo.
Finance 101.
Yeah.
Along with business.
Yeah, that's right. People can distribute their portfolios. Remember that part? Okay, so he came up with the 10% gross annual income for the purchase price of a car. But to me, this didn't sound like that much, but I don't know. For example, if you made $42,000 a year, then your car is $4,200. See how that goes?
Yeah. Makes sense.
And if you made $62,000, $6,200, and also he kind of adjusts it for a household income. It might have a shared car. You would have to make an adjustment there, right? If you had more than one income in the house. He claims that many people are spending too much money on cars, up to 80% of their gross salary, which seems kind of insane. He found that 20% of borrowers are taking out loans of $50,000 or more. That means median income earners who buy median price cars are essentially spending almost 80% of their gross salary. Then on top of that, you have the effective tax rate on the earnings, because he's talking about a gross salary, which could be up to 20% in tax. And now it's people are spending their whole income on that car. What else? How are they eating? Who are these people?
I mean,
who are these people? But I guess they're paying it off over time.
yeah.
It must be that but it still could be a major drain, and maybe you're sacrificing elsewhere where you didn't expect to, like on your rent or your other
Your living
like your
conditions.
lifestyle, let's say. Now, another thing that he brings into the consideration is opportunity cost, by suggesting that if you got all this money tied up in a car, I don't know how much savings you have, but you go buy some really expensive car that you can barely afford, it's a depreciating thing. If you invested that money in, say, real estate, it, depending on the market you're in, that could appreciate in value, or you could invest it in something else.
Yep.
And so that opportunity cost is lost by putting your savings into an expensive vehicle. He says he learned this lesson the hard way by purchasing a Mercedes G500 SUV for $79,000. And he thought it was a good deal because a year before that, it was a $150,000 car. But shortly after purchasing it, it was instant buyer's remorse. The car was costing more than he had anticipated when you factor in gas and insurance and everything else. Also, parking in San Francisco proved to be a problem because it was too big for the garage of his current apartment. Wouldn't you check that one out beforehand? I don't know. Anyway, in 2003, he sold that car at a loss of $15,000 and took a 1997 Honda Civic for $7,000 and took some extra cash and bought a condo instead for 580 G's. That same condo today is worth $1.4 million. Okay, all right. You see that? That's business, Will. Financial advisor. I think most people probably know this. The surprising part to me was that it was 10%. I thought it would have been a bit higher for a purchase price. I get it. People lease cars. There's different ways people interact with cars and stuff like that. But 10%, yeah, if you're being responsible. But the thing is, I think a lot of people are not, and probably overspend on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a couple friends who like to mod their cars and spend a lot more money on the look of it
Yeah,
than other things.
for
So,
their personal enjoyment.
yeah,
And how can you tell them what that's worth?
and it's their lifestyle is modifying their cars.
So maybe they skip a night out. Maybe they skip a Korean barbecue.
Yeah, it's a hobby for them.
Maybe they skip a Chick-fil-A here and there.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe they skip a Valentine's Day. They just have Valentine's Day with their car.
Candlelight dinner. Chug some gas.
Here's one. This headline caught my attention from CNET. No one should buy the Facebook Portal TV. And this lady, Megan Woolerton, says, in over 6 years of testing tech, this is a first for me. She doesn't use that language very often, Will. Now, maybe you've seen the commercials for this thing. Facebook has been pushing to get a camera in your living room. They first had the Portal, which was an all-in-one unit, and now this new Portal TV is a thing that connects to your TV with a camera facing at you, microphone. You can't cover the camera lens, but she goes through the review essentially saying, hey, this works pretty well. This is pretty cool. But then comes to the conclusion, which is kind of similar to mine, which is, who wants a Facebook camera in their apartment or house?
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed this. What is it? Like
So it's a video conferencing thing. It's like Skype or something. It has other features. You can watch video from Facebook. It's a Facebook portal. It's a portal into what you might do on Facebook, but on your TV or in your kitchen. And but primarily centered around the idea of video conferencing. So I'm a new parent and I have and I live across the country and the grandparents want to see and let's go on the Facebook portal. Portal TV. Oh, look, she's crawling, this kind of thing, which is fine. It's a great way for people to connect over long distances. The problem is it's similar to our conversation yesterday about the new Facebook logo. There seems to be some sort of tone deafness to people are out there saying Cambridge Analytica, Russia election, Donald Trump, fake news, political campaigns. People are talking that language, and Facebook is like, how about a camera in your home?
Yeah, there's a lot of negative connotation.
It's just like, why? It's almost like they do the opposite thing of the feedback that they're getting about how people feel about the brand. They don't get more out of your life and say, hey, we're going to back off. They say, we're going to double down. No big deal. And now you have Facebook cameras all over your house. Now, I just don't think, I think the general public is in the same space as me. I might be wrong. There might be a demographic of people who this is super convenient for, who all their family members are already on Facebook and it's a simple way to connect. I can appreciate that. And maybe they don't care about having Facebook in the living room. And so many people already have other companies in their living room. Amazon and Google and whoever else is listening in. Apple with Siri. They had a recent issue. People were listening to, Siri was being triggered inadvertently, and then people were listening in, monitoring those Siri recordings. So you could be skeptical of pretty much any microphone or camera you put in your house. But then you slap the Facebook logo on it and you just start thinking about that more, and it kind of kills the potential for a lot of people, I think.
Yes.
No matter how convenient the product happens to be. So she comes to a similar conclusion, which is basically, hey, the thing works pretty well, but I would recommend it to no one. She essentially says, in light of the various issues surrounding the company as a whole, this is not a product I can recommend. Sitting in Congress, they got beef with Twitter. We talked about it in the logo story. Twitter came out and said, look, we're just going to end political advertising altogether. And there is a push right now for Facebook to do the same. And maybe if Facebook started making moves like that, people would feel differently about the brand. I don't know exactly how to turn it around. It's kind of weird how that works with momentum. Once the ball starts rolling in the other direction and people are already skeptical, it's just hard to get them back, as we've seen with other brands and other social media in the past. So we'll see what they can do. But I don't think this particular hardware product is a way out of that current pattern. Up until this point, the only thing that appears to appears to supply a shift is the acquisition of other brands.
And
Instagram,
then just leave them alone.
WhatsApp, although who knows how much they'll leave them alone.
Yeah.
But to this point, it doesn't seem to have affected the Instagram user base very much. Most people I don't think are boycotting it because it's now a Facebook brand. So maybe Facebook, the message people are sending to Facebook is, hey, it's cool. You own many things. You're all powerful. But just chill for a minute. Sit in the background and we'll keep interacting with your brands. Maybe Facebook relaxes and instead lets some of their other brands do the legwork. Brands that customers might have a better affinity for at the moment. And then you let some things pass and maybe you reemerge like a phoenix.
Rising from the ashes.
Zuckerberg. Picture him as a phoenix. Or don't.
Bird head.
Or don't. Remember when he was smoking meats?
Yeah.
Do you remember that clip?
Of course.
Oh, man.
It's the supercut.
That is a clip. We've probably shown it on here before. We don't have to show it again, but Zuckerberg smoking meats. Check it out. I'm wearing watches, Will.
Yes.
I was wearing the Apple Watch for a bit. I'm back to the
Polar
Watch now. I just like a chunkier. I just like a really like a rugged feeling watch when I slam it into something, not to feel.
It's durable.
I don't know what it is. It gives me a sense of confidence. I told you in the past, I grew up wearing G-Shock watches from Casio, and I feel like every sort of smartwatch I wear, I want it to feel like one of those. Mm-hmm. Of course, the other benefit of this watch over other smartwatches is battery life, which I don't want to charge the thing all the time. I like having the watch last a little longer than the smartphone. It was a funny experience, actually, with the Apple Watch and the iPhone, because the iPhone this year, the 11 Pro, particularly the Max, but also the regular Pro, had this tremendous battery life. But the watch, on the other hand, added this new always-on feature, which I have to have on a watch. I just, the action of it being a watch is still number one for me, because I have my phone nearby too, but there's something about that activity that I still like to do. So the funny thing about the experience with those products was the phone could last like 2 days in some circumstances, but the watch, forget about it. Sometimes it didn't make it the whole day. And so it's a very bizarre kind of experience that you wouldn't necessarily have expected. Anyhow, I ended up back on this device, and I'm kind of interested in this idea of this potential hybrid smartwatch, not so smartwatch, which is what this is. I'm not getting notifications, but it has the heart rate tracking, it has certain fitness stuff on it. It has the always-on display, but it's nowhere near as vibrant as what you would get out of something like an Apple Watch. Well, it looks like Fossil has heard me, because they have a hybrid customizable e-ink display, analog / e-ink smartwatch, the hybrid HR. Why are you laughing?
That's a very particular feature set.
Very strange feature set. Yeah. They heard me. They've been listening. Of course, what this gives you is a traditional looking watch, which may or may not be to your taste. I appreciate that. With some hands on it, and the e-ink display almost tricks you into thinking the whole thing is a traditional watch, which I like. Now, you can configure each of those 4 wheels on the e-ink display to display different things. It could be steps, it could be the weather, it could be a date, it could be your heart rate. There's a few different things you can plug in there. Of course, it does have a heart rate monitor on it, so it is smart to a certain degree. Now, beyond just getting the style that you might be looking for, you're getting tremendous battery life. Supposedly, this thing is going to last 2 weeks on a charge.
Oh, wow.
Which to me is crazy compelling. I remember in the early days of smartwatches, I was traveling a lot at the time, and you get to your hotel, you're setting up your chargers. It's just, if you're a watch person like I was my whole life, I'm saying since I was 12 years old, I was wearing a watch. The idea of just taking it off and dropping it somewhere and picking it up and it's ready to go. In fact, I was into watches. I had a Seiko Kinetic with auto relay back in the day, which was actually a watch where your movement was able to power the watch and keep time. And the auto relay was able to remember the last time, even if you had the watch unpowered for a long period. This was a Japanese watch. And so I was into it to a certain degree back in the day. And so for me, it was always a downgrade, this idea of maintaining your watch like a smartphone. And so many people yell at me for this, and they say, you're charging your phone anyway, charge your damn watch. But I take my watch off in a different way than how you take your phone to the charge point. Sometimes my watch comes off. I could take it off over here. I could take it off in the bathroom to take, when I take a shower. I could take the watch off, put it on the coffee table when I get home. And I just don't want to have it on. I'm typing. I don't want to have a watch on next to you. You leave your watch in different places. You don't need it in the same way as a smartphone, and therefore it's not always at your side. I don't really need to. That's me. Look, if you're charged lifestyle, if you're organized, good for you. Great. But for me, this is a compelling package. And I think it might be for some other people, hence them actually putting the thing out. I think it looks pretty good as well. It comes in 42 millimeters as well. I like a chunky watch, so that's kind of nice. It has 3 separate working 22 millimeter straps. It's running its very own OS, so you're not looking at any type of Android Wear or anything like that. Not that it would make any sense because this is this hybrid e-ink real watch scenario. It's available starting today, and the prices vary from $195 to $215. And it's funny because, you know, that looks pretty good right there. Wouldn't you agree? It looks pretty cool, right? Yesterday we were talking about the defunct a smartwatch company. Do you remember it? Pebble. And this is kind of like a new iteration of something they were thinking. Theirs never looked like this.
No.
Obviously. But they had an e-ink smartwatch, and it had some of those benefits. It never panned out for them. But then again, their watch never looked like this one. Their watch kind of looked, well, I mean, looking back on it, no, the original one with the really chunky bezel. Looking back on it, it looks incredibly antiquated already with the small display. I think the implementation that Fossil did is they're getting closer to the perfect version of that thing. But just keep in mind, it's not a smartwatch like an Apple Watch or an Android Wear. It's a hybrid, hence the name. They're not trying to get away from it. They're letting you know straight up. It's a hybrid. CVS, that's a very big drugstore, has started delivering prescriptions to homes via UPS drones. The drone delivery era is upon us. Now, you recall having seen the original clips that Amazon was showing of drones delivering packages to homes, friendly drones, not military drones, Prime Air, friendly drones. Friendly drones.
Yes, not the death traps in the air.
That's right. Not dropping bombs out of the sky or anything. Well, obviously that's not happening quite yet for the majority of people ordering things via Amazon, but they have started to test out the idea for delivering prescriptions to homes with these UPS drones, places that might be hard to get to, especially things that are important like prescriptions, like medicine, keeping people ticking. In some cases, individuals who need their medications are not the most mobile to go pick them up. And so this particular trial run here, it hauled medicine to 2 homes, and one was a retirement community. So that gets to what I was saying about the mobility issues in North Carolina. That was on November 1st. The drone flew autonomously and lowered the packages to the ground with a cable and winch. And the whole time there was a human operator ready to take control if necessary. Now, I don't know, that operator must be back at the base. Just prepared just in case to take over the toggles, in case it's going to run into an old lady or a dog or a lake with the medication, whatever it might be. So to me, this is promising. I remember when I first saw the clip and imagined a future in which drones are just buzzing about delivering everything. And it seemed really far away when I first saw those videos. But here we are in the real world. Now, granted, a very specific application, but here we are in the real world, and a couple of drones are buzzing.
Yeah. I mean, the use case it makes sense. I mean, prescriptions are not that heavy. And
they're important
not gonna
and
fall.
timely. Imagine this reality in which
Kill someone.
the grandma goes to the medicine cabinet, cracks it open.
It's like, oh no.
She's out of a critical medication.
Yeah.
But same time, she's kind of living in a rural type of setting. You can only get you can only get driven somewhere at a certain point in the day. Delivery services are available only at certain points. Imagine she could just trigger the drone. It's all automated. He leaves the facility. Bam, bam. Futuristic. Future grandma.
Yeah. She walks out the door. She's like, and what? What now? Because she's cool like that, you know?
Willie Doo's doing a bit right now.
Yeah.
You hear that, Kirk?
It would be funny.
Well, he meant to say. Well, he meant to say. She's like, and what? What now?
Yeah, that would be the commercial.
And now what?
You know.
And one, like the old, yeah. Wow. She ordered a pair of kicks as well.
Yeah. After taking her medication, she goes,
Because she's fired
she
up now.
stomps.
She's feeling great after post-medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be right. Anyhow, so this is out in the world now. Who knows what they're going to deliver next? I'm excited for it as much as I understand the necessary concern. If you just let these things start buzzing immediately, it's going to be wild out there. Imagine these things navigating autonomously. This thing flew itself. Imagine them all dodging each other, dropping your packages. That's cool.
Yeah. Be a nice thing to watch.
It'd be a totally different story in urban environments, though. So many more obstacles.
Yeah, not in cities.
Skyscrapers, forget it. Which is kind of interesting because the city is always the thing that's the futuristic.
Right.
But really, this is much more likely to roll out first in rural areas or suburban areas because there's fewer obstacles to compete with. All right, getting to the story now that I mentioned earlier regarding screen time. Do you remember that? I was insinuating we were going to get to this.
Yes.
Screen time is linked to lower brain development in preschoolers, MRIs show. This is some new findings. American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that kids have limited screen use due to cognitive and behavioral risks. A new study found an association between excessive screen use and a lower level of brain development amongst preschool-aged children. They took 47 participants' brains and they did this scan, and they had two different groups. There was a survey called Screen Q, and they measured how often these children were in front of screens, and then they looked at the structural integrity and myelination of certain tissue there in the brain. And that's a coating of connections between nerve cells and fatty substance. It insulates the nerve cells and increases the efficiency of signaling. Basically, that's your functionality, Will. That's your... When you're doing that.
That's your snap.
That's your signaling. That's your efficiency. Your brain's just fired right up. So the children with the higher screen Q scores, that's the children who are in front of screens a lot, they also had poorer expressive language and did worse on tests of language processing speed, like rapidly naming objects. So the potential consequence of this is only 47 subjects, by the way. That's not a huge user base to run a test like this. But if there's a real cognitive component here and negative cognitive impact, there is so much development taking place at that stage in a person's life as a preschooler that it's like a snowball effect of if you don't hit those initial cognitive thresholds, those initial milestones, then you may be limiting the eventual potential for that individual in a number of different categories. If, let's say, something as simple as language processing speed, like naming objects, well, if you are not capable, let's say, of processing language at the same rate as your peers, you may be more inclined to avoid those social circumstances in which recall and processing might be very important to you. And now you might become reclusive. Now you might be less likely to seize opportunity. Like, we just can't. There's an incredible domino effect to impacting an individual at such a young age. Now, there's many factors. Obviously, each of these kids has a different parents and environments that they're living in. It's so diverse. This is why you need very large pools of individuals for these types of tests to try to make sure that it is the screen thing that is causing the effect.
Right.
But at least in this study, they seem fairly confident. They say this is the first study to document associations between higher screen use and lower measures of brain structure and skills in preschool-aged kids. That's Dr. John Hutton. He's a pediatrician clinical researcher at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. This is important because the brain is developing the most rapidly in the first 5 years. That's when brains are very plastic and soaking up everything, forming these strong connections that last for life. This is a limited time opportunity that you have that you wouldn't necessarily think about as a 5-year-old. You're not sitting there as a 5-year-old saying, yeah, I got to get it in right now. You're not saying, whatever I formulate in my brain at the moment has got to last me a lifetime. This is also why we owe a debt of gratitude to our parents, whoever they happen to be. If you're sitting there and you got the connections for life, you can kind of bank on the fact that a lot of it started super early in the way that you were treated and the opportunities that you had and the books that you read and the conversations that were available to you and who knows, the wide variety of things that allowed you to develop the way that you did. So anyhow, this is obviously an interesting finding. I know a lot of people were speculating that this might be the case. We all had kind of a feeling in the gut when you would go to the restaurant and some kid is glued to the iPad.
Oh yeah.
You would think to yourself, how often is this person glued to the iPad? And you can't help it. You just wonder, what does that mean developmentally? Because it's so new and fresh. I know when we were kids, we watched stuff, but it isn't like it is now. You can't just jump on YouTube Kids and be gone for 12 hours and then wake up and try to figure reality out. We didn't have that option. I mean, I told you earlier about the Dark Crystal VHS. I had like 4 movies in my house and a VHS player.
Yeah.
And if I was super lucky, we would rent one. Because you had such limited access, you just wouldn't be doing it all the time. You would do a wider variety of activities. And so we are really running an experiment on the youngsters when it comes to technology.
Yes. And ourselves for that matter. Even though developmentally we're at a different stage, we might have a better cognitive ability to delineate the different aspects of our life from technology to reality. But you're right. It's an interesting topic, how we limit this, where we draw the line. They're saying no more than an hour. The World Health Organization, their latest recommendations say kids younger than 1 should have no screen time, while children under 5 should stick to an hour or less. This is so hard, man. Because some people rely on it. Yes. Really, really busy people who work long hours and they get home and they got to cook dinner real quick. And you can throw the iPad in front of the kid and then all of a sudden, boom, you just generated this time where you would have had to been paying this attention and juggling this whole thing. It's understandable. But I think the investment is worth it. If possible, the investment is worth it in the youth. They got to carry that for a long time. And that's the future of the world in a way. Yes.
Not in a way. It actually is.
So we were watching TV as kids, right?
Yes. No, well, I wasn't really. I did not have cable TV.
Right.
Up until the time I was 5, 6 years old, I actually lived like in a rural situation.
So no screen?
No screen. Just like I said, those few movies, but maybe a movie once a week or something. It was fairly hippie status.
Right.
I had, some of the neighbors had farm animals and I would go, we had a greenhouse. I would go pick tomatoes. It was kind of wild up until a certain point. And then I think around grade 5, if I recall correctly, we were able to convince my parents to bring cable TV into the house. And then we started watching The Simpsons and whatnot. Yeah. And then, well, obviously it's been downhill ever since.
But even then, like, I remember those shows or movies just was a lot slower.
Oh,
the pace of it.
Interesting. Less addictive.
Yeah. I mean, on YouTube, it's just like seizure fest. It's constant. And you have personal agents. You can interact with the types of videos that you watch nowadays.
Yeah, you're driving it. You just keep going and going and going and clicking and clicking. It's a different thing. Addictive. It's obviously a new thing, and we're going to find out more about it. But it's kind of an age-old thing in relationship to moderation. And what's that saying? Everything in moderation except moderation. Is that
including moderation?
Including moderation. There you go. So look, people are critical even of that concept, but you wouldn't, from a nutritional perspective, you wouldn't just feed the individual sugar as a 5-year-old. So why not from a cognitive perspective, don't we treat it the same way? You say you have to eat your vegetables. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe the cognitive equivalent of the vegetables is putting the screen down and having a conversation.
Yeah.
So maybe
tell that to a 5-year-old. It's difficult.
You're talking about the conversation piece?
Yeah.
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 Well, I think they're up for it. In my personal experience, they're up for it. Mm-hmm. But like everything else, it's a process. You can't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden they're into it. Mm-hmm. You have to make the case. Mm-hmm. And it's an ongoing thing. Like a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
You got to put the work in. If it's worthwhile, it's going to take some work.
Yeah.
The Curiosity rover just took a photo of its rocky Martian prison. This is so cool. To me, at least, this is the latest photo to come out of Mars, obviously. And it's just such a futuristic image. Caught my attention. This is the last rover surviving on Mars. It's called Curiosity. It's the size of an SUV and is capable of traveling 100 feet per hour. It has been exploring a pit on Mars called the Gale Crater since it landed in 2012. That pit is believed to be 3.5 billion years old. There's the space talk of the day where your brain melts onto your keyboard deck. 3.5 billion year old pit. So imagine the existence of this rover since 2012 for the last, 7 years, just roaming around, snapping photos on Mars. Wow.
By itself.
It's so wild. It's the size of an SUV, and it's just looking around. And it's a lot of photos like this. But somehow this photo, it looks all right. Like, I start to see and feel what Elon's talking about.
You can live there?
Well, it looks like you could figure it out. It doesn't look as bad as you might imagine. I mean, it's obviously very empty. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of vegetation.
You can put a couple domes in there.
You got to put the domes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the biodomes.
A couple houses. You'll be all right.
Yeah, so it's climbing this mountain over here. And that mountain is called Mount Sharp. This photo was taken November 1st. I mean, you take the photo, you're sending the photo back from Mars. It's cool. It's a cool thing. Well, other planets. Don't you think? I used to be into space as a kid. You look at the solar system. What a concept. It's crazy as an adult how you can just kind of, you almost shrink. Almost shrink. Your scope shrinks. You look up, but you don't even look up there because it's just day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
But Mars is there. There's Mars. That's Mars. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, put some stuff in perspective. The rover hasn't stumbled upon any native Martians yet, but it found plenty of evidence of past water and traces of elements like hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and carbon, all considered building blocks of life.
I mean, Elon would be happy.
Elon's very happy. He's very happy. He's very interested in Mars. Anyhow, that's via livescience.com. You can go check it out if you want a little more information on how this all took place, but I thought it was pretty
Does this make you feel better?
Yes.
It's not like this death trap. It actually looks like a landscape.
That's what you mean. Yes, that too. That too. I can see falling in love with Mars.
Imagine waking up to that.
Well, not every day.
No, I can see remember how we were talking the other day about Iceland, the last hamburger in Iceland?
Yeah.
Mars kind of looks like Iceland.
Yeah, in a way, right?
That's fine with me. I get it. It's not very habitable at the moment, but just from this image, it looks all right. If we switch a few things, fix a few things. I think I just take comfort in the planets in general, space, the scale of it. It alleviates some pressure for me. Like it just feels, oh yeah, there's this whole wild thing out there, which we know something about, but not everything about. For me, for some people, I think that could be a paralyzing concept, and then they got to fill that void with other concepts, which are comforting. That's comforting enough. I love that.
Does this give you perspective?
I love it.
Yeah.
Mars, the universe, the loop that we talked about, expansion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm into it. You know what I'm not into? Parasitic worms in my eyeballs. California woman contracts parasitic worms in her eye after going on a trail run. Yeah, I'm always encouraging people to go for a hike. Go take a walk in the forest. Well, not so much for her. She's running in a place called a place in Northern California. I don't know if they get any more specific than that. She's trail running in Carmel Valley near Monterey. And she's coming through an area. She's coming through a patch, Will. And there's a bunch of flies, like a swarm of flies. And she just runs through the swarm. And it's like, ugh, what was that? And kind of wipes off her face. Maybe a couple got in her mouth. Thinks nothing about it. Keeps going. But then, a little later on, her eye is sort of itchy. You know? She gets back to her hotel or wherever she's staying or whatever. Her eye's a bit itchy, so she starts pouring a little bit of water in there. And as she pouring the water, she feels something in there. It's a little worm in there. She picks that out. You imagine that?
Oh, it grew that fast?
I don't know. I guess I don't know. No, it didn't grow that fast. It was March when she found a worm, actually. And so it was a month later.
Oh, it was living there.
It was a month later. Her right eye started to bother her a month later.
Oh, man.
So you could be infected right now, Will, and you don't even know it. The woman splashed tap water into the eye, and a wriggly half-inch roundworm came out. She then found another one, which she also pulled out. She went to an eye doctor the next day who found a third one and instructed her to continue washing out her eye with distilled water. Oof. Imagine pulling a worm out of your eyeball, Will. This is very rare, by the way. It mostly affects cattle, not humans. It's a very rare type of worm.
So the main question here is, did she lose an eye?
I don't think so. I think she's all right. Not like that guy. The guy who was showering with the contact lens, I think he got it worse.
Okay.
I think she seems all right for now, but it's crazy. I get 2 stories on my feed in a relatively short span of time of the eyeball stuff. I feel like my whole life went by and I thought, you just take your eyes for granted, and then all of a sudden worms are jumping out. Everybody's getting worms in their eyes, and well, the other guy, like you saw pictures of his eyes, very, very graphic.
Yeah.
These worms are everywhere. Well, so what's the moral here? I don't know. Still go for the hike. I guess just watch out for swarms of flies and kind of maybe just take the detour. Or close your eyes.
Or goggles.
Goggles. Hiking goggles. Is that a thing? Now it is. After this story, now it is.
In the desert, maybe.
There you have it, Will. Moral of the story, Mars. Moral of the story, there's no eyeball worms on Mars. They got a little bit of water, some phosphorus. There's no eyeball worms.
Yeah. A little cold, but...
No, let's not focus on that.
You know.
No eyeball worms.
So as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Let's book the next trip. Call up Elon. Start to prepare. Because we're going to Mars. And we're never coming back.